Hello, guys and gals, and we are back with another book review, typical for every Sunday. Anyways, we have Endling the Last, and it is by Katherine Applegate. Apparently they also did the one and only Ivan, which I hear is amazing, and Disney, I think, adapted that to the big screen. I wish they'd adapt this book to the big screen as well, but or at least to like TV or something. Anyways, I have a background story to this book. It was a couple years ago. I don't know exactly how many years it was. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I was at the Walmart in Pekin, I believe, and they've got a huge book section there. And I saw this book and I thought it looked interesting, but I didn't quite want to buy it yet. And so I took down the name and looked it up later and got it from the local library. And that's when I initially read this. I eventually got a copy for $4 from the Blue Butterfly in Havana. So this is my copy. But yeah, it's really an interesting story. For those of you that don't know, Endling is the very last of a species. It'd be kind of like if the dodo was still around, but there was only one left, then it would have Endling status because there would be nothing else. And honestly, I would believe that being in Endling status, meaning the only one of your kind, would be, well, it would basically end your entire family line, especially, well, you have to go into genetics for most of this, but if we're talking about creatures that do not have similar DNA to anybody else, then once the very last member of that species died, then there would be no reviving that species, unless they were a scientifically advanced community or something like that. But this is talking about the extinction of an entire species. There was a discussion that I had with a friend of mine. Hope it's okay that I share the story. I'm not going to say who the friend is or anything. But they like to talk philosophically. And basically, well, I'm not getting monetized anyways, but if I was, I'd get demonetized for talking about this. But we were basically talking about genocide, when we think of that word, we think of Undertale, destroying all the monsters in the underground, and getting the bad ending. The thing with Undertale is that if you get the bad ending, then you can never get the good ending ever again, because it's always tainted. It taints your save file. And that's basically what wiping out entire species does, to a certain extent. But me and the friend of mine, and also some other people, were talking about the definition of genocide, because it varies. And it was after I was talking to this person that I got, well, it was basically semantics we were talking, definitions and stuff like that, which makes it all the more fun to talk about, definitions and concepts, philosophy. And so I set up a situation in my own head, not a realistic situation by any stretch of the imagination, because the term genocide is basically just the total eradication of an entire species. I think. I don't know. I'd have to look it up on dictionary.com or whatever. But I found out, or figured out, did research, and found a way that you could actually make the genocide definition work without actually technically making it work. I'm going to try and explain that here. I don't know why. I don't think it's appropriate, but okay. So basically, sorry about that. If you were to go to an alien planet, and you say these are peaceful aliens, they weren't going to hurt anybody anyways, but let's say you were a total evil person and you basically, wanted to commit the big G with them, there would be several ways you could do that because, okay, if we're talking about the humans, the way that humans interact that way, if you took if you either took all the males away, or if you took all the females and children away, then that would basically be genocide because whatever was left behind, they couldn't breed and they would eventually die out, provided that nothing else on that planet was compatible, unless it was like, like with horses and donkeys, they're basically they're genetically compatible to a certain extent, but there's a chromosomal difference, and so the offspring is usually like 95% of the time sterile, so they can't produce offspring themselves. But anyways, I'm way off of the task here. Let's talk about this book. Anyways, this book is about species eradication, basically, and how terrible it is. My initial reading of this book, I thought that maybe it was kind of like Fern Gully, because Fern Gully goes a little bit heavy on the environmental messages, and I get that. But it's all very, very valid here. Basically, we follow Bix, which is a fictional species, the dog, anthropomorphic dog. And Bix is a Dairn. And they are one of the 5 ruling classes of, I think it was Nadara, something like that. But there's a plot to make the Dairns extinct. So I think this is a trilogy, actually, and I haven't actually read the second book. I need to do that. It's on my list. I've got a list of like 50 books I need to read. Anyways, Bix teams up with Tobble. I believe it's Tobble, who is also a fictional species and is the mouse. I think, yeah, that's a mouse. Also, there are other friendly people in the book. There's like this human named Kara. We'll say Kara. It's spelled Khara, so I don't know if it's pronounced Kara or Kara. I think it's probably pronounced Kara. And there's other really helpful people in amongst, all the scoundrels, But it's a very exciting story. I'm trying to think if it left on a cliffhanger. It probably did. Now, what's confusing to me, and I know this is done intentionally, because I've seen the titles of the other books. This title is Endling the Last. Now, you'd imagine that would be the second book of the series, because the second book is Endling the First, you see. So you'd imagine, or you'd say, oh, well, that must be the first book, because it says the first. And then there's a third book, I think, called Endling the Only, or something like that, which kind of brings to mind the one and only Ivan, which, again, was made into a movie. And maybe this book will have enough traction to actually get a movie made. I mean, even the Wings of Fire franchise is being made into at least maybe an animated series or maybe a movie, I'm not sure which, over on Prime, Amazon Prime, I believe. So it's good to see these books getting the love they deserve, especially if they're made good, For all their faults, and a lot of people say, well, bad movie adaptations, they always go back to this one movie that I'm going to mention. And I don't really find the movies to be bad. And I'm going to preface that by saying a few things. If the movies didn't actually have the tagline, or were associated with this particular universe, then they'd be good movies, because they're good movies. It's just that they diverted too far from the book. Anyways, so I'm talking about the Percy Jackson movies, not the Disney series, because I think that it basically follows it pretty well. I wish I could watch it, but I don't have Disney Plus or anything. Because I'd love to watch that series, but I don't have Disney Plus. I don't do streaming services. Um, but anyways, because I hear that it's really close to the book, and Rick Riordan actually has a hand in actually guiding that project, and he's the book's creator, so the book's author. The movies, what I will give the movies credit for is they did seeing the previews of the movies made me want to read the books. And so I ended up reading the books and read basically everything that Rick Riordan wrote in regards to Percy Jackson, even the Trials of Apollo. The only thing I didn't read was there's only one series I wasn't able to get into, and that was the Norse one. It was they just basically made the books a little bit too long, and I just couldn't get into that. So there were two of the Norse books I just couldn't get into. But I even got into the Egyptian ones, and not very many people like that series. But I thought they were fine. It's just that the Norse ones were like 600 pages long, and I think overly detailed. That was the only one I didn't like. Otherwise, I liked all of his other stuff. But anyways, so the movies, even though they weren't true to the books, got me interested in reading the books, and so I ended up reading all the books. And even buying most of the books, I think, except I didn't keep most of the books because I wanted to save the library money, so I donated most of the books to the library that I bought to read. So, yeah, I know the library gets grants to buy books, but I like to help out when I can. But anyways, this book, The Endling, I know I've been talking about lots of other stuff, but The Endling is very well paced. It's very, very graphic, though. And I think it's still well within the range of being child friendly. It's just that it's kind of depressing. But when you're talking about the extinction of an entire species, it's a depressing topic. I mean, it's not something you just discuss over tea and biscuits, and expect to, get good feelings unless you're like a psychopath or something. Anyways, oh, I got something in my pocket. Oh, I forgot I had a. That's weird. I ended up with a quarter in my pocket. Oh well. But yeah, the story is very well paced, I thought, and when it comes to world building, this is amazing. The world building in this book is amazing. Very well done. I'm a big fan of world building just because I enjoy world building myself, and the world is very vibrant. But yeah, um, I feel the book has kind of an impending sense of dread, and I think the best books do. They have that sense of dread going on. But anyways, yeah, this is really a good book, though. Like I say, initially I thought that the themes of species extinction and was a bit heavy-handed, but then upon reading it again, I saw that it was right on. It's a very, especially this day and age, with animals losing their territory and stuff like that, their habitats, and creatures possibly going extinct. There are lots of animals that are on the endangered species list for various reasons, whether it be habitat loss or poaching. It's just something that is also relevant today. So, yeah. But I could see how someone could say, oh, well, this is very heavy-handed and maybe a bit preachy. But I think that the topic is handled very well in this book. I honestly really want to see if I can get this. Maybe the library has a sequel to this one. The second book, at least. This book was, let me check. We're up to 369, 377. Okay, we are up to page 381. So, yeah. 381 pages, which is a sizable book, and the text is kind of small, but it's also beautifully illustrated too. So I'm glad I have my own copy because it does have a map of the region here, and the illustrations are beautiful too. I don't know if it says who the illustrator was, but they did a really good job. It probably says in here somewhere, like illustrations by so and so. Oh, illustrated by Max Kostenko. Cool. Well, the illustrator did a really good job. This also has a list of all their books. I will go over that real quick. Also by Katherine Applegate, The One and Only Ivan, Wish Tree. Yeah, the font's kind of difficult for me to read in this dim light. But yeah, Wish Tree, Crenshaw, Home of the Brave. And then we have the Roscoe Riley Rules series. Number 1, never glue your friends to chairs. Number 2, never swipe a bully's bear. Number 3, don't swap your sweater for a dog. Number 4, never swim in applesauce. Words to live by. Number 5, don't tap dance on your teacher. Number 6, never walk in shoes that talk. And number 7, never race a runaway pumpkin. Those are all very good advice. That sounds like another really fun series. I haven't heard of that one, actually. I think I've heard of Crenshaw. I haven't heard of Wish Tree, though. But I have heard of The One and Only Ivan. I hear that that's really good, too. But yeah, this book does get really dark. It does get... There is some violence. But yeah, it's kind of scary being the very last of your kind, or I could imagine that. And this book really examines that concept very, very well. But anyways, yeah, this is a book that I'd highly recommend you check out, but then again, that's just my opinion. It's very well made. A very well crafted book, and one that you should probably check out. But then again, that's just my opinion. You can either take my opinion or leave it that way. It's fine. Your local library should have a copy. I mean, if our library here in town has it, then your library probably does too. But anyways, that is, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. You are loved, and have a great day.